It's always been a mystery to me how to sell my work. What should I charge? For the value of the wood, the value of my time, all of the equipment, supplies that I use, and then if I give myself $25 an hour, I put a value on the wood, consider all my operating costs. I would never sell a single piece. So how do I make something quickly, and how do I make something that people want to buy, that they want to spend their money on? So I thought it'd be great to get some folks that have been successful in this process of making and selling, and to just have them talk about it. We can ask questions and develop our own approach, our own style, and make decisions on whether we want to make this a living, a hobby, or the ultimate goal of just breaking even. So, who from the panel would like to start?
Sure. Because I am never short of words. So what I did tonight was I brought a bunch of pieces to show you sort of the range of what I might have at an event. Hollow forms like these, and a range of those. Bowls that range from the little tiny things. Another little bowl here. This big piece, I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I have a vase here. The first thing I know is that with vases, the number one question you get asked is, does it hold water? All right, so either you got to have a sleeve or you got to find a way to seal it so it'll hold water. And you can do that with resin. I recently found a paint by Gorilla Glue company that you can spray in, and it's like a rubberized coating, and then you can paint over it. So after I sealed it with the rubber coating, I put in some black paint just to make the nice inside look nice. Anyways, pricing is sort of depends on the event. I've done the Arts Fest they have here, run by the Berlin Arts. What do you call yourself, AJ? Is he here? Anyways. And then I've also done an event up in Salem. Salem Arts sponsors it. And I did an event, I forget where it was. It was a real mix. One of the events was a mix. It was like people making soap and people selling cutting boards and then people doing all sorts of other stuff. And so it was arts and it was stuff. And I think at those events, your pieces tend to get less money because you're mixed in with all this sort of ordinary stuff, and the people that are shopping there aren't expected to find any. Well, I don't expect them to buy anything expensive. So that's where pieces like this do really well, right? So if you go to an event and it's a mix of arts and crafts and low-skilled stuff, then you sell bowls. A bowl like this, $25, maybe $30. You're right, Michael. I'm never going to get my time back on this. Thankfully, the material was free, the raw material. So little bowls like this, I typically go $25, maybe $30. What I found enormously difficult is to sell hollow forms at an event like that. People just don't want them, or they're, what do you do with that? What's it good for, right? They don't see it as art. They see it as clutter, I guess, right? So these pieces, I'll have a really hard time selling these at most events. In fact, this piece was down in London now for how long, Ross? A year? More than a year? And it sat on the shelf to the point where the wax started peeling off. Don't ask me why. So a person would look at this and say, wow, that's neat shape, and they'd get up close and they'd see that the wax peeled. That's a risk if you have a piece in a gallery. They suffer wear and tear, and so sometimes you have to revisit. I have some pieces at a jewelry store up in Salem, and they clean the counters with Windex. And I don't know if you know this, but Windex will cut through carnauba wax better than just about anything. And so I have several pieces of carnauba wax, and it just burnt right through the wax. And they're like, oh, we don't use any chemicals. I watched the woman that runs the jewelry counter spray it down with Windex. I'm like, oh, yes, you do. I'd like to get, I don't know, $350 for a piece like that. Very few buyers are out there looking for a piece like this. So it's really hard to sell these things. As much as I love making them, and that's what I struggle with. Do I make things to sell, or do I make things I like to make? And I'm sure we've all gone through this, right? My wife says, you gotta make more bowls. And I'm like, yeah, they're not as fun as making hollow forms, right? This bowl was down in New London as well. And this, to me, is a perfect wedding gift, right? This is the kind of thing you give a new bride, puts it in the middle of her dining room table or whatever, right? It had a price on it of $385. I don't think that's unreasonable for a bowl like this. Big cherry burl like that. Mark, you're going, what do you think?
I usually do 10 times width times 2.5 for a regular bowl, and then add to that.
So you have a formula.
Yeah, the formula to keep everything consistent. And small bowls, $25, $30 is about what you were saying is probably my formula fit that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I might add another 100 or 200 per figure.
Oh, like a burr? Or,
Yes.
yeah. No, maybe. If you remember that painted vase that I brought when we had the night with the joint artist thing, that is at the jewelry store right now. $600 is the price I have on it. And I asked the woman that owns the jewelry store, I said, you know, what do you get impulse buys? She says, all the time. I said, are they smaller or bigger? She says, they tend to be larger. Of course, she's talking about jewelry. Apparently, people will go in and drop $3,000 on a piece of jewelry without thinking twice about it. Yeah, that's what I said. Wow, right? Okay, price that one at $600 is what I said, right? Now, I'll split that with my friend Sue because she did the painting. That's the way I work with Sue, is basically whatever I sell it for, she gets half, I get half. So that way she wants to do it. Yes, sir?
What's the gallery thing?
This is the amazing part. The Salem Arts Gallery, where I sold a few pieces out of there, they take 30%. So I sold a hollow form, a walnut one, really pretty, $300. I get $200, right? I'm not complaining. The jewelry store takes 5%. It's a really special deal, right? Yeah, I said, I looked at her, this is Jenny, the one who owns the store. I said, look, I'll give you more. She says, oh, I know you will. But I just want, you know, get you a kick, you know, get your name out here, and, you know, ultimately I'll move to Salem and I'll be able to do more of that. But she's fairly generous in her shelf space and her commission. So it's a really unusual deal. So, but yeah, expect in a gallery 30% is not an uncommon, 35%. And so that tends to push the prices up because you want to get a decent price for your piece. So and that's what I was thinking when I put this piece in the gallery down in London. I'm like, he's going to want, what was his cut, 30%, 35? 20. Okay, so I raised the price enough to make sure that I got paid reasonably well, and he still got his covered cost of shelf space. And you go, why did he take such a big cut? The fact of the matter is, shelf space costs money, right? And he has to decide what he's going to put on the shelf and how much to charge for it to cover rent, right? He's got to make a living, right? And so I don't begrudge them their cut. So anyways, depending on the event, you might want to be selective about what you bring. Maybe the next time I do a craft fair, I don't bring pieces like this. They're a lot of work to carry. People go, wow, that's beautiful. $300? Forget it, right? Oh, $25? Yeah, that's fine. $25, and you can sell these all day. Doesn't take long to make these. If you get nice wood, you can make a ton of them. Crank them out, do a good job on them, sand them, whatever. And then you might create a repeat customer too. So if you can, get their email address, and then you can communicate some way or other to them. Get their attention. So say, hey, by the way, go to my Instagram. Anyways, that's all I got to say. I'll answer questions unless you want to wait till we all talk.
You mentioned the jewelry. Any thoughts about putting little rubies in your hollow form and making it more like jewelry?
Real rubies, of course.
Yes.
I have thought about trying to integrate metals into my work and stone into my work. I don't know how to do that without destroying my tools yet. So. And as you saw in the last newsletter, I've become less of a fan of resin turning because of the plastics. But that's usually the way you integrate those things, is the resin helps you bond everything. So I'm not sure yet where I'm going with that.
So I think oh, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
So I look at all of your days and rolls, and you generally put on a soft satin type
Depends. Yeah, these are all relatively soft. This one's shiny.
Everyone knows that my bowls are shiny.
Right.
And it's interesting that several years ago, we had a guest from Florida visit our ART show, and he said shiny sells. And what I've noticed also is that if you have something that has a shiny bit, it stands out amongst a lot of the other similar objects. So it takes a little more work, but I'm a good shiny finish that
This had an amazing shiny finish on it, and sitting on the shelf for a year, all the wax peeled off, and I don't know why. It could be the tongue oil underneath wasn't dry, I don't know. But I generally go for a shinier rather than softer, unless super shiny and the fingerprints are jumping out at you like mad. So I said, all right, I'm going to give this one a little softer look. So I hit this with a very fine steel wool to take off the shine.
My shiny finish is very big, so it's not everything action.
I don't have the patience for urethane.
But I agree, it takes a lot more work to get it done.
I find that wax, shiny wax, won't stay shiny for long.
Even the carnauba wax.
Yep, I agree with that. So I think I use a shiny finish underneath. I do buff it when I'm done and put on a light coat of carnauba, but it's really the underlying water locks that is giving it a shiny finish.
And my preferred finish, if I'm going to use a chemical-based one, is lacquer.
Yeah.
And that gives you an amazing shine. So, but that's also tricky, and there are certain times of the year where I can't use lacquer. Like
Yeah.
when it's really dry, I have no success. I get orange peel. But when it's humid like this, for some reason, I get good lacquer finishes.
Okay, so I think in terms of pricing your work, the first thing you have to consider, and this touches on some of the same things that Mark did, is where are you selling your pieces? Beth and I do most of our sales at what I'd call mid-level craft shows here in central Massachusetts. If we were putting Boston Art Gallery prices on our pieces, or even Paradise City prices on our pieces, I guarantee that our sales would drop a lot, because the people that go to even the juried craft sales we're at, they know about Paradise City, and the reason they're not there that weekend and they're at our show is because they don't want to pay those prices. So people looking for they're trying to buy art, but they want to buy it at less expensive. Okay, I don't use just a size formula to price bowls. And so sort of to illustrate that, I brought two bowls here. They're both from Beech. This Beech was just a tree in Upton, Massachusetts. You can see that it's a mixture of heartwood on the rim, sapwood. The reason the heartwood isn't symmetrical is I cut this out of a crotch, hoping that the crotch figure would really pop and be exciting. But by the time I'd roughed this bowl out, I'd already known that this was going to be a utility bowl. And it's got a salad bowl, it's got a walnut oil finish, and in terms of pricing, I'll probably charge about $110, $120 for that bowl. It's fairly heavy. It outweighs this piece. This is Beech too. And as you might notice, you can't see any sapwood or heartwood on this, because it's the most outrageous spalt I've ever seen on a piece of Beech. The spalt lines even follow the figure in the wood. And so where did this tree come from? The Arnold Arboretum. And so this I pictured right off the bat. This is a display piece. It's got thinner walls. I turned it thinner than the other piece. It doesn't weigh as much, even though it's taller and the same diameter. if this gets picked for the Arboretum show, I'll be charging about $250 for this piece. So 2 bowls, same type of wood in terms of the tree, but completely different. And this one is priced based on what I expect to sell it for. Now, other factors that have to go into your pricing are, was it free wood? These were both free wood. But if I make a winged bowl out of a eucalyptus burl that I paid $70 for, that $70 has to be in the price. I'm not giving those bowls away for free. And so I don't make a lot of eucalyptus bowls because those ones, since they're natural edge, they're starting at about $150 and moving up from there. And this applies to natural edge, anything that has an interrupted cut like this bowl or I think the cherry vase, that costs more because it takes more skill to make that, in my opinion, and also takes more sanding time because you can't, all the corners have to be hand sanded all the way from whatever you start with up to, in this case, I sand these pieces to 2000 grit. It's microfiber, so it's not sandpaper up at that point. Now this one square plate's probably about 10 inches. You can see it's similar in cross section as these other pieces. I'll probably hope to get about 120 for this. If this was from the part of the tree that had great ambrosia stripes, that would be good for another $50. And so you can see I don't use a simple formula. I consider wood cost, what it looks like, and I also date my pieces. And so if I put a date, if I look at a bowl that I have at our house and the date is before 2000, and I've been taking that one to the show, a lot of the people that come to that show have seen that bowl in previous years. And so if I put a price on it where it's just sitting there, that's not doing, it's just wasting space. They've already looked at that bowl and weren't interested in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019. And so those ones, if they sit around long enough, I just make them donation bowls just to get rid of them, or I knock the price down. Because you need, if you're going to do shows on a routine basis, you'll get lots of repeat customers or people that look at your stuff multiple times, and they'll recognize things that they saw the year before, and they'll even say, "Oh, I remember you had this one last year." And so, yeah. So anyway, Mark mentioned hollow forms. I've been making hollow forms longer than Mark has, and I agree entirely with what he had to say. At shows that are not really art-related shows, hollow forms don't sell particularly well. I always feel for someone who's, the thing they like to do best is hollow forms, and they're sitting there with hollow forms that at some shows just sit. I mean, the way we construct our booth, we have some high shelves, so I have the hollow forms up at the top. If someone's interested, I'd be glad to get it down from them, but I'm going to have more visible areas for parts of our inventory that are more likely to appeal to a broader group of people. Now, the truth is that the people that are interested in hollow forms are also the same sort of people that might be interested in Beth's and my segmented bowls. And so again, it's a small percentage. We like to have some of those around, but I'm not ready to switch over to entirely segmented wood turning. It's a labor of love. And on the prices of those have to reflect the fact that it takes hours and hours to make. Beth and I, we're working on a segmented piece together. We started it Sunday, and tomorrow we'll have the final, it has 17 rings. The 17th ones will be glued on Friday. So that means we've spent, the two of us already, 4 days working on that piece.
And we've been working more or less all day. This isn't.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
So
So that is a labor of love. Or
any questions about,
Let me finish the,
oh, yep.
but again, even that is balanced by what shows we do. So for example, he did a vortex bowl that he had at the Arboretum, and he sold it, well, he sold 3 of them for $400 each.
The Arboretum, people will pay more for a
Yeah.
price. Just
Which is why we're
FYI,
good.
yeah.
But
So if you put a price on your Arboretum things, definitely, and if it's made from Arboretum wood in particular, charge
Raise it.
more.
Yeah, one year I sold 2 pieces for $500 total. And they were both 2 small, relatively small, tall, hollow forms.
But what I was going to say is Ken Lindgren looked at it and said, you should be charging $1,000 for that. That piece is worth $1,000. But, we don't go to sales that people are spending $1,000 on a piece. And the segmented in some ways is similar. I'll put a $500 price on it if I'm taking it to an AAW meeting, because that attracts a lot of collectors. But we won't charge over $350 at any show we go, because there aren't that sort of people. On the other hand, what we do, which is, I do a lot of the utility stuff, and that most of it is under $50. And, that's how we make our booth fee. It's the pepper mills, the ice cream
Ornaments, too.
scoops, the ornaments. But we always have a few of the higher pieces, because you'll get that one person who, came with their sister that day and has a wedding to go to, and wow, they'll pay the $300. So, some people say you don't want that wide price range because you need a focus, but for the sales we go to, a little bit of everything helps. And the other thing is, again, it comes down to some of what will people pay. So these barbecue sets are sort of my exception to that, because they're a pain in the butt to make, because you have to be very precise to get the pieces together. Mostly I've been doing them with segmented Celtic knots, but this wood was just so amazing, I did this. The pieces, the metal costs $18, and I can sell, admittedly, only 2 or 3 a year for $75, because they're show pieces, but useful.
I'm sure Steve's going to also touch on pricing has to include parts, and he's got, and supplies. He's got
So
big components.
just a show here, how many people have got a tent and went to a town fair and sold stuff? Okay. So I've been doing this now, I've been selling at shows, at fairs for about 4 years. The type of fair that I do is like the Hudson Fest. I'm doing a Sturbridge Fest in October. I'm doing a Holden Fest next month. And I'm very cognizant of pricing. Most of the items that I sell are below $100. And I actually sell very few bowls. The bowls that I do sell, I just make a simple bowl, I waterproof the inside, I put some soil in, and I put some cactus in. And people really like them, and they sell amazing. So it's an easy thing to do. Cactus are fairly inexpensive, and if you put them on a shelf, they look really nice.
And how much do you sell them for?
So if I had this bowl and I put 3 cactus in there, I would sell it for $40. The cactus themselves probably cost $2 a piece. And you can put some nice decorative rocks in there, and they sell very nice. Women like these for their house. The other thing is, I like to sell a variety of items. So I don't limit myself just to bowls and vases. So I do a lot of handled material. One of my best sellers are pizza cutters. Ice cream scoops are very popular. I also like to have lower priced items to get people to come in. And for that, I do these pendants for women, and I sell these for $15 and $20. You were talking about like the shine of a piece to make it stand out. The thing that I think helps me is color. A lot of people don't like working with resin, but
Oh, I like working with it. I don't like the part that's plastic.
but it catches people's eyes and it brings people in. And if they see this on a shelf, they'll pick it up and they'll say, "How did you do that?" And I'll talk to them and they'll say, "Boy, that's really cool." So for something like this, I have a 12-inch silicone mold. I'll take a piece of wood. This is a piece of olive wood. I'll pour the resin in. I'll take it out of the mold. And from this, I can make a variety of things. So what I'll do is I take them out of the mold and I'll finish them off on the lathe. I'll do all the sanding and shaping. So from this piece, I can make just a plain charcuterie board. I can get some cutting wood feet and put some cutting wood feet and make it a cutting board. Then if I use my CNC, I could change it into a cribbage board. And then if I buy some cheap handles, I can put handles on it. So from the same piece, I can make 4 or 5 different items. So it makes things easy. Who sells handled material? So if you sell handled material, don't buy cheap shit. Buy high quality, heavy pieces that they'll make you pieces. When they pick them up, they'll know they're good quality and they look better. So these come from Rockler. When they're not on sale, they're probably about $24, but they're always on sale when they're about $18. So if they're on sale, I'll buy a bunch of those. And the same thing with the ice cream scoop. Don't buy the cheap stuff. Spend a little bit more to get better quality, and I think they stand out. The other thing that I think is important is if you have a tent, you want to make it to look as good as possible. So when you're setting up your tent, make sure you use nice tablecloths. You have nice shelves. You have to figure out how you want people to look at your things. Do you want a U-shaped with the tables so people go into your tent? That way you may not be able to fit as many people in there. Or do you want tables on the outside so people walk around the outside? The other thing is, how could you make this sell better? Exactly. Go to Trader Joe's the night before, buy $10 worth of flowers, and put the flowers in. It makes a big difference. People notice that kind of stuff. The other thing I do, if someone buys a couple cutting boards, I'll give them one of these. I have to admit that I sell items that aren't turned. I think a good investment for a wood turner is a laser. A laser kind of opens up what you can do. You can laze your boards. You can laze the inside of your bowls. I just think it opens up a lot of avenues. I sell a lot of cutting boards, and people love this kind of rustic stuff with mountains and deers and stuff. They love that kind of stuff. And a laser will open up that kind of market to you.
Yeah, you know all the keychains too. Right?
Yeah, so the keychains that this is the keychain, so a keychain like this. So I bought 50 of these, I think for $40. So it's a cheap item. You can laser this whatever kind of design you want on there, and maybe you can sell them for $4. You can laze something like this in 3 minutes. So you can buy cheaper base materials and use the laser and get a pretty nice profit from it.
How much was the laser?
Well, so I have a Fox Alien laser that's a combination. It's a laser and a CNC, and it was $1,200. But you can buy a nice tabletop laser probably for what did you?
I think my Laser Master or Tour Laser Master was like $300.
Yeah, so you can buy them.
Spend another $100 on a rotating.
Yeah,
for rotating.
and the other nice thing is you can engrave the bottoms of your bowls. So I think it's a nice investment.
That's how I logo everything.
Okay.
Just don't cut it too thin, because then you get a really good stencil.
One other good thing about selling is the story.
Oh, the story. So at Sailfest, so I brought some of these items, and I think some of the club members were pretty amazed by people wanting to know how you did this, and it's good. You talk to them, and maybe they buy it, maybe they don't, but you're kind of building this relationship with people, and the stuff they love touching this stuff, and like. They see this and like, how'd you get the pine cone in there? And I think it's a good selling feature.
You saw the captive ring vase I did. I think I wrote about it in a previous newsletter, but I had a vase with captive rings on it, and honest to God, almost every person that came into my tent would pick that up and they'd spin the rings and they're like, how did you do that, right? And I swear, I almost sold it about 4 times. Finally, someone bought it. I was really surprised how it took forever to sell. But something about certain pieces just get people's attention.
So I know a lot of people don't like working with resin. It can be a costly upfront cost. The resins are expensive. But they make resins now, deep pour resins, that you don't need a pressure pot. So you can kind of take that all off the table. And you can, if you do fairly small items like this, you don't use that. I don't pour any items that require huge amounts of resin. I limit myself to small handled material and boards like this that use a fairly small amount of resin. So with 2 gallons of resin, you can get a lot of items. And if anybody is interested about learning about making handle material or this kind of stuff, I'd be more than happy to show them.
Do you think you'd get more how did you make it questions with this kind of stuff as opposed to the bowls that you're doing?
So we always take an example segmented ring to every sale we do, because
That's where people
virtually everyone asks, are those inlays? Or they think maybe we've cut little pieces of veneer and glued them on. So those have a tremendous amount of questions. Natural edge bowls have questions.
Yeah, natural edge bowls.
And the other one is, where did you get the wood?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Where do you get your wood? And I'm like,
All over.
Hudson Light and Power trims trees and leaves stacks on the side of the road. And I stop and I look. Oh, I got enough of that. I don't need any of that. Oh, I haven't seen that one before. I'll take that piece, right? So yes, side of the road, right? And people like to hear those stories. Or I go out on Facebook Marketplace or Facebook, people do the free wood, come get it, right? And I've done all of those things, right? And you tell people that. You know me, I'm a storyteller, and I love talking to people that come to the tents, even if they don't buy something. There are some certain kind of people that come to the tents. There's always the first person in the morning that says, well, I want to finish looking around, but I really love that, I'm going to come back and buy it. How many times do they come back and buy it? Zero, right? Never believe them, right?
No,
so you always do, as a sales guy, I always do the trial close. Well, it might not be here if you come back later. That doesn't work either. So, but I have sold pieces just by, oh, my dad would love that. And I'd say, well, you should get it for him. And the guy goes, yeah, I think I will, right? Sometimes that works. Most of the time, you can't even suggest a sale. You just have to let them browse. Do let them touch it.
Yeah, let them.
Because touching things suddenly makes it more theirs. Though I had, my last time I did a Salem Arts event, I had a piece stolen. I could not believe someone was that brazen to steal a piece from me. But someone stole a piece, yep. Maybe, yeah, it's got my name on the bottom, so if it ever shows up again, they'll know where they stole it from.
So,
Just like Mark was mentioning, how pieces in a gallery can show wear and tear after a year. If you're hauling your pieces to craft shows, another reason I like to have inventory turnover is I've got probably a half a dozen pieces at home that were damaged either going or coming from craft shows. Ones where there's a dent in a bowl or a crack in a hollow form because, we're having to pack stuff in.
At the Hudson Fest, our display got blown over. I had 2 pieces damaged, repairable, but 2 pieces got damaged, so I had to take them off the shelf.
We were getting ready for a show last year, and I picked up a natural edge bowl I had and realized that someone at a previous show had touched the bowl with food on their hands. And so there was this incrustation of who knows what that I had to clean off before we took it to the next show. Because what's the customer going to say? What's this? And I said, we're just trying to show you it's food safe.
So people that sell, first of all, I think you definitely need to have a Square account. You need to have a Square reader or something similar to that. The other thing that I think is helpful is have a Venmo account. Every young person has a Venmo account, and it's easy to use, and
I printed out the QR code
Yeah, you can-
and I have it on behind a frame.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to
So
pay
actually-
by Venmo,
Yeah,
they
so
either ask my ID or they bring their camera out.
it's really easy to use.
You need business cards too.
Business cards too. Business cards are helpful.
Square credit card readers too.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
So you definitely need a Square
account.
You have to have cash, and it's great to have a
I
Venmo.
never do cash. People will give me cash,
No,
but
actually,
I don't make change, right?
You never have change. You never have. So I always.
You use Apple Pay?
I don't, but I get a lot of people that's
Interesting.
I mean,
Give it a simple on Venmo.
we always bring a cash box. Among other things, what we see is, depending on what people perceive the current economy to be, the percentage of your sales that are credit card versus cash changes. If people think the economy is great, you'll have 95% credit card sales. If they're worried about the economy, that'll drop down to about 60%. And people will come to the show with the cash they want to spend, and when it's gone, they're out of
So
there.
the other thing is,
Do you declare that cash, or you just put it in the mattress?
No,
so I think it's important when
we
you
sell enough. If we don't
The IRS
declare,
will notice.
the IRS will notice.
So I think another.
Like they get our Square account
sorry.
every year, and it says we had $9,000 of Square deposits or more.
You better declare that.
You better declare.
So I think another nice thing is when you sell your product, have some nice bags to put it in,
Yep.
and tissue paper, and put a business card in there. You just don't want to take this and put it into a plastic Stop and Shop bag and give it to them because it just doesn't look good. So invest in some nice bags. I think it shows everything will show better.
I mean, Beth and I've been running the club thing at the Worcester Center of Crafts, but long before we did that, the club had already bought good sales bags and tissue paper.
Yeah.
And so as long as the club's been doing that show, we've always tried to make, look professional as a club. Yeah.
Remember, lower or raise the prices. Someone says this is interesting, but I can't do it now. They're like lower the price, I'll give you 10% off or something like that.
If it's something that's been around for a long time, I would rather given people deals. You know, particularly if it's something that I look back and say, you know, sure, you look like a
Yeah.
good person, you can,
But we're also more likely to do it at the end of the sale
Exactly.
season. when-
right. Our last sale is
One less piece to carry home.
in Harvard Square.
It's a lot of work to drag all this stuff to a show, to set up and to go ahead.
Someone mentioned tax, state tax.
Yeah,
Yep, you gotta,
How do you incorporate that?
we charge tax and
We
I
charge-
pay the
Well, it
sales
varies.
rate to the state.
So, I mean, I think, or most of us are just charging tax, but some people do incorporate it into the price.
yeah.
Well, I sold some stuff in Providence once, and I had to go through a lot of paperwork, and I had to put tax on it.
Well, so Rhode Island has a different situation. We've done, for a couple of years, Beth and I did a sale down there, and the people running the sale basically charge you $10 in lieu of you ever having to charge sales tax. And so how that really works is Rhode Island has a law that says that if it's handmade crafts are non-taxable, but you have to have basically a little form that says these are handmade crafts, so I don't have to charge tax. Massachusetts doesn't do that. AJ?
I put taxes in my price. So if it's $140, I tell the customer, I'm going to cover the taxes for you. And yes, I absolutely pay Massachusetts taxes. Once you start, if you miss a month, they're going to bill you anyways based on what they think you sold.
Yeah.
So pay the taxes.
Yeah, that part's really annoying because Beth and I sell nothing between January and September. But I have to fill that form out, and I tend to do them like 4 months at a time when they send me the threatening letter.
Every quarter. You got to do it every quarter, right?
No,
In fact, we're
every
right-
month.
Oh, no, every quarter. It depends on how much you sell. I think
Right.
it matters.
So
How,
we
how
sell enough,
frequently you
we-
pay sales tax depends on how much you sell.
Right.
As the treasurer, I have to file 0 returns every month because of the Worcester Center for Craft.
Right. Yep.
Because we charge tax there and that gets.
That show's big enough
So
to.
for one show, I have to file 0 returns every month.
Yep.
But it's.
It's electronic.
easy.
It
You log
takes.
into the account, like I did it the other night while watching the Olympics. You know, it's just you log into the account, it's 0.
Yep.
File, that's it. So it is easy. Pardon?
I set up my square reader so it just automatically.
It automatically,
Yeah.
right.
Adds the sales tax. Nobody box if you're
No.
paying $40, then suddenly it's 6.25.
If people pay cash, do you still do you charge them tax, or do you
Yes.
still charge tax if they pay cash?
Have to.
Because I can
I mean,
still
just
figure it
for
out with the
bookkeeping.
square.
Yeah.
Is your square reader a swipe only?
Actually,
It's a tap.
your iPhone can now read credit cards.
Tap. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a tap.
Android.
Square sells both a swipe and a tap reader.
Because anything that reads Apple Pay, anything that reads any contact,
Yeah.
can read them both. It's not Apple Pay, only it's Google Pay.
Yeah.
Any contact, the device does that.
Yeah, you can read a tap card on your iPhone, probably on your Android as well.
Yep.
Steve has the tap and swipe reader. I still use my old-fashioned one that plugs into the phone and swipes, unless someone has a tap card, then I can read a tap card.
AJ? Yeah, you just tell it what state you're in.
So this is the square reader that I have. It has a tap. I like it a little bit better than the small one that you put on the phone. This is rechargeable. It just hooks up the Bluetooth. Very reliable.
By the way, did my
I'm not
charge
an
go
expert,
through?
when I see people.
No, I gotta
use
try it.
swipe
I
versus
can try it again.
contactless, there are way more problems with the swipe. The tweet,
Yeah.
Swipe, stripe.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Card, right
Yeah.
hand.
So I'd recommend that people. So this is the little one is free with Square.
Yep.
But this is, I think, $49. It's worth the investment. The swipe ones are not as reliable
Well, that's,
as these.
well, I have the little one.
You have the little one.
Because, like, I'd say 3 times on the 3-day sale, I can't get that to work, and the swipe always works as long as I hold my hands.
You do, so you do need a Wi-Fi, you do need a Wi-Fi connection. So that's the, you know,
And the only other thing, which I don't know that anyone's actually had a problem with, is Square. If someone, if it's a fraudulent charge, you're covered if it's a, I think a tap or a dip, but if it's a swipe, you're not covered because they say the security isn't as good on the swipe.
and I think once you spend
But
over,
yeah, but somebody has to be trying to cheat you before it becomes a
once you
problem.
spend you make $700 in sales, then Uncle Sam is going to be asking for his, so, the same thing with Venmo.
600.
You're going to, oh, it's 600, okay, so 600, even less. The year. So it doesn't take much to get over that.
I mean, one other thing, since we're covering the whole area, before you decide to do a craft show, like Steve said, you need to have a booth, but you need to find out ahead of time whether you have enough inventory yourself to do a show by yourself. And I would also recommend go to the show as a John Q. Public,
Yeah.
and check it out to see if it's the type of show you want to do. Because Beth and I get invited to go add new shows, you know, several per year. And not only aren't we really looking to add any more dates than we have, some of them we've gone to and realized that we simply wouldn't fit in. It was mostly, you know, cheap New England crafts, and that our stuff was like, didn't fit there. And so I also have a slight bias against outdoor shows because I hate rainstorm steering shows because that's a good way to, or wind. But things to keep in mind if you start thinking about doing shows.
And if you'd like just to test out selling stuff without all the hassle, the Worcester Center for Craft CNEW booth is always looking for people to at least bring a few pieces in that we'll try and sell for you.
In the Sterling Fair that's coming, you know, I think people should bring their stuff. In the Bolton Fair.
Yeah.
I think, you know, put your stuff out and see
Given
what
the
happens.
numbers that I expect at the Bolton Fair, I probably will bring some hollow forms. Because there's going to be a mix of people that are looking for $20 bowls and people that go, oh, I'll pay $300 for that hollow form.
You know, Hudson Fest, the whole group of us didn't sell a lot.
But
I think we had a fun time that day.
It was a good day. Yeah.
There were enough people coming by to look that you got to do the, you know, how do you make this stuff?
Yeah.
They got to see the lathe. So I would recommend participating in some of these events, particularly if you've been in the club long enough to have some inventory and think that your pieces are ready for public consumption.
Or you want to see if they're ready.
Right.
Yeah, this year's Hudson Fest, we didn't sell as much as we sold the prior year. And maybe it's because we were new 2 years ago. And and we were all
We had competition by this.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we did. He was down the other end, and he was kicking butt down there. So, but talking about wood turning, who doesn't like talking about wood turning? Right? And that's what you do at those events. You get to talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, look," and they're watching you, and they're saying, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't know how you did that. Oh, that," and they're learning. And I think that's part of why people just love watching it.
Another way to get a person in their head to see it in their house is to ask them, where would you put that piece? That's a good one.
Yeah.
Steve, on that square meter, and you said you need a Wi-Fi for that, so if you're at an outdoor event.
Oh, it'll do.
It'll pick up.
3G is
Use your
fine.
phone as a hotspot.
Yeah, I've had a couple issues, but for the most part, I always find out.
And most places that we do a show up at Fruitlands at the end of September, and they always come by, tell us what their Wi-Fi number is, and we've never had a problem there.
Worcester Center for Crafts
That's the same.
also always gives us the Wi-Fi.
And-
But yeah, you can just use the 3 or 4 or 5G also. It just might cost you more.
another thought, these events are a lot of work. Yeah, like if it's a one-day event, you got to get there, 8, 7 in the morning, you got to set up. Then you have to stand there the whole day, and if you're alone, you're not going to get food or drink unless you packed it. Even going to the bathroom can be tough, right? That's probably when my piece got stolen, when I was in Salem last year. Then at the end of the day, you got to figure out how to pack all this and load your car while everybody else is doing the same thing. And so their tempers get short, people like get out of my way, but everybody tries really hard to be nice about it. But plan, that's going to be a day where you are just going to come home at the end of that day and you're going to be wiped. They are exhausted.
And if it's raining out, it's really miserable. trying to keep your stuff dry, and it's miserable when the weather is bad.
It's also great if you can have a wife or friend or whatever be with you at the booth at the same time, because one of you can be doing the talking about the pieces while the other one is...
So my wife comes, and so I'll be talking, but when she'll make the sale, she'll take the piece, she'll wrap it up, put it in a bag, so it helps out a lot.
That really
helps.
Really
helps. And just setting up, having two people makes a big difference.
And it's a nice day out.
And it's a night, it's that way you can go to the bathroom if you want to go look at what's going on at the festival. You can do that.
Just to make sure your wife doesn't spend more than you make.
Yeah, been there, done that.
So I'll just go ahead and agree with you. I'm picking up on something that Mark said about talking to the customer. So I'm a casual. I do not do production period. I don't go to craft shows. I do arboretum. I do top field fair. That's for ART sponsors. I get it. This is there with people. That's pretty much it. Other stuff that I get from friends, family, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
So when I go to the arboretum, for instance, I love to be there and talk to the customers. People come in, and they'll ask questions, and they'll say, well, which piece do you need? And so I'll go around and show them 3 or 4 pieces, and I'll tell them what. This is week, and I'll also show other people that I don't favor myself. But invariably, they will buy one of my pieces because I have talked to them about the piece and how I made it or why I made it that way. Talking to the customer in a scenario like that is really important. So, put something right there out here. I say, go ahead and out here, spend 3, 4, 5 hours or a day there. And it's a lot of fun talking to people and buy themselves something. Same thing at the top field fair. See, at the Worcester fair, at the Worcester show, we do a great job of displaying it. They don't put everything out right away. It's overwhelming if they do. Top field fair, that's there. Everything is put out. It is overwhelming. People walk into that little booth, and they can't see one thing for another summer. So if I'm there, I say, I talk to them. What are you interested in? Point them in different directions and talk about different things. And it does increase those costs.
Any other questions? So now you're all experts.